Like most game developers, I have a long list of unfinished projects that never quite got to see the light of day. It's always the same story. A spark of inspiration leads to starting a new project and working like crazy for a while until the basic gameplay is up and running. After that initial sprint, however, the spark dies and the motivation begins to fade away. But this time, I'm determined to do things differently. In the last video, I showed all the features I'd implemented so far, and I realized that I'd done it again. I'd created a set of mechanics that I thought would be fun to build, with almost no thought for whether or not they'd create a game that was actually fun to play. That's why my focus since then has been getting other people to playtest the game and using their feedback to refine what's there into an enjoyable experience. I learned a lot from this process, especially around balance. I knew that as the developer, I would play the game differently to other people, but I never anticipated just how big the difference would be. It was a hugely eye-opening moment when the first person I got to play the game died almost immediately on level 1. This made it super obvious that the game needed to be much easier in the starting rounds, or people simply weren't going to have fun with it. There were also lots of balance changes around gold rewards for killing enemies, as well as not only the power of upgrades, but also their initial cost and how that cost scales over time. I also experimented with a more roguelite version of the game, where your upgrades would persist after death. Unfortunately, this made the difficulty curve much harder to balance, and made the game feel like a grind, having to return to the slow pace of Wave 1 over and over again. There are definitely ways to combat this, like making new enemies spawn as soon as old ones are killed, instead of being on a timer like they are now. So I might revisit this idea in the future, but for the moment, I decided to stick with the original design. Fast forward to today, and the game has been stripped back to a much simpler version of what it was. I've removed everything that was on the bottom toolbar, so no more traps, no more training wizards or archers, and the different types of boulders are gone too. By removing mechanics, I was able to focus just on the core game loop of launching boulders at enemies, and made sure that that was fun and that the difficulty was where I wanted it to be. I do plan to add these mechanics back in once I know exactly where they fit within the game's progression. But for now, I still feel like there's a key piece of the game missing. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but I'd like to experiment with enemies that run vertically instead of horizontally. These enemies won't attack your castle, but they will give you a significant gold reward. My hope is that this will create a risk-reward dynamic for the player, making them choose between keeping their castle safe and maximizing their gold to spend on upgrades. So that's where the game is at for now. If you'd like to see more videos like this, or have any suggestions for what I should add to the game, leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next one.